Without further ado, tonight we are honored to have with us a true artist whose journey embodies resilience, authenticity, and the power of turning perceived limitations into superpowers. Maelyn Jarmon is a singer-songwriter who captured America's heart as season 16 winner of The Voice with Coach John Legend, becoming the first artist with a hearing impairment to win the competition. But her story goes far deeper than that historic moment. Born in Texas and raised on music with her guitarist father, Maelyn moved to New York City to pursue her dreams, grinding through years of late-night residencies, waitressing shifts, and the brutal reality of being an artist. What makes her story extraordinary isn't just that she's completely deaf in her right ear with only 80% hearing in the other, it's how she's transformed that into what she calls her superpower, using vibrations and a deeper connection to music that most artists never discover. After years of ups and downs in New York City's music scene, at her lowest point when she was considering moving back to Texas, a single Instagram post of an original song written about heartbreak led to her discovery by The Voice. Now she's crafting her debut solo project with Moon Records, with new music coming soon. Please join me in welcoming an artist who proves that our biggest challenges can become our greatest gifts. Maelyn Jarmon, everybody. Yes. Woo! Wow.
That was so impressive. I feel like I didn't even know all that about myself. That was amazing. How did you find all that?
You are quite the the talent. At the beginning of the interview is really try to understand a little bit more about your origin story. I think some of the really interesting parts about your biography is that, you came here, you moved here to pursue music. But if you can take us back to that first moment when you realized that music wasn't just, a thing that you did on the side, but, a purpose for you, a passion, something that would compel you to uplift your life and your parents' life to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, music has been a huge part of my life. As you said, my dad's a guitarist, and I've been singing with him since I was very small. And I actually have kind of always known that music was what I was supposed to do. And I would play, my dad he was in multiple cover bands, and I would go up and I would do like Linda Ronstadt and Heart, and we would do these 70s rock. And actually a lot of my family members love music. My grandfather was he loved jazz. He loved, I grew up watching all those old 40s films, and like a lot of those were musicals. And so I fell in love with musicals. And so I was doing that. And I also, I like to do a lot of different things when I was younger. I also competed classically. So I was trained classically when I was like 13, which I don't, yeah. But I started I had won a few competitions and had continued with classical, but I also loved doing musicals, and I loved acting. I just loved telling stories in general. And I had, at probably around 12, became homeschooled, and I did shows on the road, and I did musicals. I did Schoolhouse Rock, which is still great. I was Noun. A noun is a person, place, or thing. And so I traveled around doing that, and I did school on the road for that. And he was always in love with music. And I came to New York, and I actually looked at Juilliard for classical. And even though I kept doing it because people were like, you're so great at it, but it didn't give me that really fulfilling feeling that, singing with my dad or doing musicals even did. So I was looking at Juilliard, and I realized that I had met with a music director on Broadway, and at that time that was sort of a trajectory for me. And she was like, don't go to school for musical theater, and just make New York your school. And so I came here at 17, and my parents had kids very young. They had my brother when my mom was still a teenager. And so they didn't have that let's go, drop everything and go explore and find ourselves. And so they were like, we're not sending you at 17 to New York. So they came out with me, and it was a fun time to have them with me, because my dad plays guitar, and we actually did the residency together sometimes. And it was, yeah. And so I just kind of kept going, and you can ask me another question if you want.
No, that's incredible. Like you were alluding, you said you and your dad did a residency together. We've heard that you had a 3 hour,
3 hours, and I didn't play.
3 hour residency at Toshi's living room every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday,
with your
3
dad.
hours. And what was crazy, so I had been asked to come and perform at like a night where there were multiple singers, and I got up and I did a Sarah Bareilles song. I forget what it was, but it was good. But Toshi came up to me afterwards and he said, "Would you like a residency?" And I was like, "I don't know what that means, but yes." And I did not have 3 hours worth of music. I didn't play guitar or piano. And he was like, he had said, "We're going to start in a month." And I started learning piano and guitar and started doing covers. That was the time when I started falling in love with, I loved to take songs written by men and being able to flip them, because I think even just that switch, it can change the meaning of a song, and being able to like put my own arrangement on it like that, I fell in love with that. And sure enough, I got 3 hours worth of music, and I did it probably for 1.5 or 2 years, and that was huge for me. And at that point, people would come to me and they're like, "Do you write music?" And I was like, "I haven't tried." And that's when I started writing, and I was like,
and how old were you at this time?
At that time, I was 20. Probably 19 or 20.
So you guys had just moved to New York and finding your way. New York was your campus.
Yeah, it was. So I had a vocal coach, and then I did an acting conservatory, and I was auditioning, and I had done like some big readings, and I was in final callbacks for some stuff, and I just fell out of love with musical theater, and I felt like all the comparison and the energy just didn't feel good to me at that time. And when I was doing this residency, I was like, this feels good. I want to do this. This is what feels right. And at that time, my family was supporting me to do Broadway. So choosing to go then and do music, I was like, okay, I went and I got a job at a restaurant. Bear Burger, still love it.
Bear Burger.
And actually the first was a hostess at a restaurant that I'm sure was a cover for the Russian mafia. No doubt. Vladimir loved me. Yeah, so I did that. I worked as a front desk at a hotel, and I also had a children's music business. And so I was working all 3 of those jobs and writing songs and doing my residency, and it was crazy, but I loved that time.
That's so awesome. I want to dive into that experience with, all the different jobs. Before we get into it, something that's really interesting, that's a thematic recurring thing in a lot of artists that we've talked to, is the role of a musical parent in their development as an artist. You mentioned your dad's a guitarist. You guys did the residency together. They even moved with you to New York at 17. What was that dynamic like? I mean, on the one hand, we're 17. We're like, "All right, Mom, I don't need a jacket."
Totally.
And on the other hand, it's like there's something really beautiful and special about having a collaborator, artistic collaborator, musical collaborator, be someone so close to you.
Yeah. Well, my parents they're not helicopter parents. Like it didn't feel like they were, I was still going out and living and doing the New York scene, and I had
as
started,
one would at 17 in New York City, of course.
Well, and because I didn't
party it up.
Totally. And I was like, from age 5, I was in shows, and I was always like, this is what I want to do. And I was not a party girl. Like I was like, I am serious about what I want to do. And I was constantly in shows. I was practicing. I was like doing that. So when I got here, there was something that was like, I need to I remember there was a moment when I was in this acting conservatory, and I think I had a lot of feelings growing up, and I was a big fish in a small pond, and the kind of thing where I was like, it was I was drawing from maybe experience that I'd had, but it wasn't they weren't real enough. And when I got here and I was in that class and we were doing these scenes, I was like, I haven't lived a lot of life. I haven't lived enough life to be able to tell these stories well, and in the way that they should be. I need to take a moment and find out who I am and go have these experiences and be able to draw from real things. Because I was so career focused from 5 years old. So I was like, I got to go and do that. And I did that. I really
You had the
did
midlife
that.
crisis at, yeah.
I did it a little too hard.
Yeah, the midlife
And now we
crisis
have
at 20.
trauma. Yeah. But yeah. But yeah, I started dating somebody who is also a musician, and it was fun. He was, doing gigs, and we were out until 4 a.m. and he had a band, and I was like, this is fucking rock and roll.
That's awesome. So
I was like a little musical theater kid, and I was like, this feels like an awakening.
rock and roll. So you had mentioned you were waitressing, had read that you were doing it 6 days a week, living in a tiny room with roaches for $1,200 a month. And at a low point, you wrote a song about your ex-boyfriend and posted it on Instagram. How did one heartbreak post change your entire life?
Yeah, it was this guy who, oh gosh, woof. We were very on and off, and that was a moment where we were off, obviously, and I was cleaning out from underneath my bed, and it was one of those things where I was like, I want you, like, what is it going to take for me to really walk away from you? Like, you've done a lot of shitty shit, and yet here I am still. And it's because I witnessed a lot of things growing up, and I feel like I was definitely carrying on a lot of patterns, and there was a lot of dynamic that I was like, I think I'm familiar with this, and that's why I'm here. And there wasn't a line for me. Like, there wasn't like, I was like, where's my line? Like, when is he going to burn me bad enough for me to be able to walk away from this? So I wrote about that, and it was just this little chorus, and I like set up my little phone, and I was like screaming into it. And yeah, I posted it, and then I got a DM from a producer at The Voice, and he was like, do you want to, we saw this video, we think you're great, we would love for you to come out and audition. And I had always had sort of, I never really wanted to do a show like that, because I never wanted to be, I didn't want it to be questioned that I worked for where I am. And there's a lot of like overnight successness to that. And there's a lot of commercial to that. There's a lot of stigma around it too. It's like, you don't see a lot of Voice winners do a lot. I would, I'm not to say that they haven't, but it's not like what it was when American Idol first came out, where it's like it was a hot commodity. So those first winners, they went on to do amazing things, and over time, it's less and less like that, and it became more about the coaches, thing. And so at that time, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, and I was like, thank you so much. I don't know. He kept messaging me. He was like, we really love for you to come out. And then he said, we're going to be in New York. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll try it. I'm here. I'm working at this Bear Burger. And maybe this is the moment that I'm like, I was getting fatigued with just the grind of it all, and I was like, what if this is a thing to try? And then I had said yes to the New York audition, and then I was a ticketing supervisor for Gov Ball, and I was yelling all weekend at like 15-year-olds coming out crying glitter, and they're like, they kicked me out because I'm drinking, and I was like, we shouldn't have done that, I'm sorry. So I lost my voice completely, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't come in, I don't have a voice. And he was like, we have all these other places, where do you want to come and audition? And then he said Texas is one. So I called my mom, and I was like, I don't know. He says that I should go to Texas, and she's like, I already got your ticket, you're coming. And I was like, okay. So I did. I went. It's one of those things where it's like, it's a lottery. It's like so much talent goes through there. I don't really believe in like music being part of a competition, because it's so subjective, and it really shouldn't be in that. It's, there's so much talent, and there's a place for everyone. And so I had a hard time with like thinking about it like that. But I was like, you know what? I'll go for the exposure. And I'd never watched it. So I went, and I was like, what's a battle? What do you mean we're battling? There's a battle round where you battle one person. And I was like, sick. Okay, let's let's go. Yeah, there was like, Maelyn knows nothing about this show. But I actually really enjoyed my experience. I made friends with all of the producers, my story producers, all the crew. Like, they're like family to me now. And it was one of those things where it's like, you really know what you're made of. You don't really know if you're like, you get up and you sing live for 7 million people, and you're like, I don't actually know how my body is going to respond to that. And then when you get up and you do it, there was like a different level of like self-trust and like the knowing of there was always a question, and it was the answer of like, yeah, you can go up and you can do this. And John Legend was amazing, and it was his first season.
John Legend at one point said that he considered you a peer and not a student.
So nice.
Which is such a crazy thing to say from such a legendary John.
I know. Legendary John. The most legendary
What was
John
that like? What was that experience like working with him as a coach?
Yeah.
And getting that kind of compliment.
Yeah. It was his first season as well. So it was kind of cool because he wasn't I wanted him to begin with. And I love how much of a storyteller he is as well. And I also love the idea that since he is new to this, like I had heard that some of the other coaches that have been there a while, they're a little more hands off. And I thought it'd be cool to be with somebody who's like really excited.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool because we really collaborated, and we don't have access to every song out there. So you get a list of songs that you can choose from. And I was shocked because he like would choose a song for me, and I'd be like, I don't think so. And he'd be like, oh. And I was like, I just said no to John Legend. But it was really cool because he would invite me over to, when I would know that I was going over the next week, the schedule was crazy because you do your performance on Monday, you get your results on Tuesday, they give you your song Tuesday night after the results show, you have your first rehearsal for that Wednesday, and then you go into studios. And like, it's like...
And this is one episode.
That's one, yeah. So he would have me come into his trailer on Tuesday nights, and we would sit and we would discuss songs. And I did do a song that I originally didn't want to do. And I was like, I'm going to trust you on this. And a lot of people, it ended up being a good call. But he knows some stuff about stuff. Yeah, he was so great. And I was also very intentional about, that's a machine in there. And like that band is like, okay, you give us a song, we're going to learn it like this. And you basically come in, if you don't have ideas and you're not like, this is what I want, this is the key I want, this is the arrangement I want, they're going to do what they do. And then you don't really get to put your like stamp on it or whatever. So I would come in I would stay up late on Tuesday. I'd find the key that I want. I'd find the arrangement that I, feeling, and I would go in and have ideas on Wednesday. And I think that's sort of what he was talking about. I had just seen him recently, and he was like, it was such a nice compliment. It's so nice. But he was like, there have been very few contestants come in that are that intentional and specific. And that was such a nice thing to hear, because I was like, I'm also a perfectionist. So I was like, there's a lot of that coming out of there. But yeah, it was really cool to be able to go in there, and he had a lot of trust in me, which was
and
crazy.
It's so interesting to for you to take us as an audience behind the scenes in terms of how that works, because I think for a lot of the folks who do watch The Voice, you just see the end result, but you're not really seeing you guys in the trailer picking songs.
We barely sing.
Right.
It's like we have a 30-minute rehearsal, and then most of it's B-roll, and you're out there like you're doing ads. We had like a Marshall ad, and then like Toyota, and you're doing a lot of like
Gotta sell those cars.
Gotta sell those cars, baby.
Gotta sell those cars.
RAV4. But
RAV4.
Exactly. But yeah, so it was, we talked the whole time.
Yeah.
Like it was all interviews, and then we'd have, stage rehearsal. You actually don't sing your song very much. And it's sort of nerve-wracking. And then
So speaking of singing your songs, I knew the dynamic with John Legend. He pushed you to sing Stay.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
And
really
you were hesitant at first.
Yeah.
But said, if John Legend has faith in my voice, I should have faith in my voice.
Yeah.
How did that moment change your relationship with self-doubt and
oh gosh,
that experience?
That whole show, I mean, I was always like, oh, I'm not that kind of singer. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like I was pretty self-limiting. But yeah, that was one of those songs that I was like, I don't know if this is right for me, but it was cool because I just had to like release that. And then I got to explore, and I found like new sounds and new things about my voice through that song. But then I got laryngitis that week. And So I didn't have a voice, like I literally didn't have a voice the day before the show. And I went and I went to the ENT and he shot something in my butt and it worked. And I was like, I felt like a superhero. I was like, that shit was awesome.
Give me some of that.
Yeah. And my voice like slowly came back, and then and my in-ears that they had like custom made for me had broken the week before, so they were still getting fixed, and they gave me generic in-ears, and I'm already like one down. So and they give me generic. I'm up on the thing, I'm standing on this piano, and my good ear goes out completely, and I can't hear anything. And so I'm just standing there, and this is where being deaf works, because I was like, just focus on vibrations and like feel it. I had to go inward in that moment, and I was like, 7 million people. But that was a moment for me of like, yeah, you have that in you to I mean, I still don't really love that performance, but as far as like what I was able to accomplish with all of that around there, I was proud of that.
With that, you were able to take that, your in-ears breaking and really turn what for most people is a disability into a superpower. Yeah. That's really incredible. I mean, I think one of the things I actually wanted to dive into was this fact that you do have a hearing impairment, which is something that
What?
I don't. Yeah. What? Which is so fascinating, because I think, obviously no one would be able to tell that you have a hearing impairment, and yet, you've won, national singing competitions, you've competed on The Voice. How has living with that impairment actually made you a better singer? How have you reconciled, living with this and actually turning it, like we said earlier, from a disability into a superpower?
Yeah, I think that from a young age, it's like a full body feel for me. And I think something about having to like focus on vibrations and really like feeling how it moves through your body, like a really deep connection for me. And to the point where it's like, and I think every musician experiences this, where you have those like live moments where you just kind of like, you're so like centered, but you feel like you get to this point of like where everything is gelling, and you start to like you feel like you're joining like this vibration that is there, and it's like this this movie Soul, sort of like, I don't know if you've seen Soul, talks about that moment where you just kind of like transcend a little bit, and like that's like the feeling that I would chase, that I still chase. And I think part of that is like singing for me is such a full body experience because of that.
And you said that you've been able to even identify notes from the vibrations versus just the sound.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had like, actually there was a whole show where I was singing with like a group of people, and they were like starting a track, and they had started it early and nobody else heard it, and I just heard this small hum, and I was like, that's the song. And I started singing, and everybody was like, oh, and then they started turning it up slowly, and sure enough it was right there, and everybody started singing with
That's
it.
awesome.
So yeah, and also I feel like it can help with my pitch, sort of like sometimes like how a guitar, when you're not in pitch, it's like a faster vibration, and when I am in pitch, it's like this slow, like kind of bellowy kind of feeling.
I'm curious about your artistic process as well. When you've said that for you, songwriting is a form of therapy. Is there a way where the ability to feel music in this fully embodied way, does that also affect your songwriting, or in addition to your musicality as well?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think since I have so many different, like I had been exposed to so much music as a child, and not just like, rock and all the stuff that my dad showed me, but I also was like listening to musicals and listening to jazz, and a very storytelling, at the like core of it. I think that's what gets me the most excited, or feels the most like fulfilling to me. So I just music is, and you've heard it a lot, it's one of those, it's a connector. And it's one of those things where you listen to something and you're like, I can't believe somebody else felt that way. And they're saying something that I have, or, I think it's something that I'm also wanting to do is like, I write obviously a lot about, sad, sad things. But also I tend to write where even if it hasn't happened yet, I tend to like finish where it's like, and I'm finding a way out of it. So that's the therapy for me, I guess, is I'm like singing through it. And even if I haven't quite gotten to that point of like, I am coming up for air or whatever that is. Yeah. And something about that is like letting that move through my body, and even saying that's like a form of manifestation, or like that's obviously what I'm wanting. And it's same, like journaling is the same way. Like sometimes you start a journal and you're like, and you get to a point where you're like, I didn't even know I felt that way, or like that's what I desire. And I feel like music can do that, and not even just the lyrics, but music around it can inspire that. And I think that's, I'm trying to challenge myself to even write more about the ugly, the messy, the stuff that I am afraid to claim so much. But it's those things that people feel so deeply and feel very seen when someone's out there talking about it. And that's the beauty of music.
No, it's beautiful. Yeah, in music, there's the substance, and then there's also like the sound and the style. You had mentioned that you've moved between classical to jazz to rock to pop. How has being exposed to all of these genres, especially even today in a world where every song out there is just a click away, how has that shaped your sound?
Yeah, I think that it's given me a lot of tools. And I kind of feel like also like genres can be linked to like certain emotions. And so it's fun to like bring different genres together. And I think genre bending is sort of like in general what music is now. I feel like it's hard to be like, this is the genre. I think there's a lot of blending happening, which is so cool. But yeah, having all of those different inspirations, and being able to explore all of that within myself has given me a lot of tools, which is really, yeah.
And now, you were working on your debut project with Moon Records. Curious how has your artistic voice evolved throughout your time in New York, and through The Voice and to now.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved a lot. So this same guy that I'd written that song about, also
He
written a
shall
lot of
not be
songs.
named.
Yeah. We actually, yeah, we'd actually, we'd gotten engaged, and we were locked down together in the pandemic, and it got really bad. And I had, through that whole relationship, obviously had so many different like sheddings of skin, and like finding myself. And I think my biggest shift though was after I was finally able to walk away from that, which was incredibly hard. And there's a lot of people that can look from the outside in on these relationships and think, why wouldn't you just get out? It's really difficult. When there was a lot of things I hadn't named in myself. There was a lot of generational trauma that I had not fully recognized, and I didn't have the knowledge of like the root of that. And so it was just kept happening, and there was something in me that was like, this is also what I know. And we were so enmeshed at that point. Like the thought of breaking up was yeah. But when I finally got out, and then I was like, that's when you think you would feel free. But then I started therapy, and I started reading all these therapy books and self-help books and psychology, and you're going into like Attached, and you're like, oh my God, oh geez. And talking to my therapist, and really naming all of those things, and unearthing a lot of myself, I had a much different relationship to music after that too, because I felt like I was always able to be vulnerable, but then now vulnerability feels even more vulnerable than it did before because I've just named all these things I have a lot of shame around. And it took me a while to want to sing in front of people again. Like I started like feeling like performance anxiety. And then there was a shift of, well, maybe, you know, there's beauty in this. Maybe I need to share this. And that was the moment when I had that moment that I shared earlier where I was thinking I don't know if I can do music anymore. And my best friend Kate Steinberg, shout out Kate or Todd, she was like, just come out and do something for you. You know, I'd gotten caught up in like, when you win a show like that, it is a whirlwind and you have a lot of people putting opinions on you and showing you songs. And like, they're like, you just need to play the game and sing these songs and like, you know, doing all these corporate events. And it just got like so far from why I do music. And I felt so far from myself. And so the last couple of years has just been really connecting to myself, and now I feel like I'm reemerging and wanting to share more and wanting to perform more. But, yeah.
It can be such a trap, right? The extrinsic rewards of success can sometimes make us crave those things, and we stray further and further away from the reason we got into it in the first place, which was this like intrinsic desire just to be creative and to make music for ourselves. At some point, like there's this weird thing that happens, it seems, where like a little bit of success and then all of a sudden you have to make the music for the RAV4, sell
Totally.
some things at Marshall's.
Yeah.
And it's good to like kind of remember like why you got into music in the first place. I think there's something interesting about the intensity that you talked about during your time at The Voice. You have mentioned that being an artist isn't a constant party. It's going to bed at 8 p.m. It's drinking lots of water. It's constant vocal rest. I guess what's the unglamorous reality of the creative life that people just don't talk about?
I mean, especially when your body is your instrument, the amount of care that has to go into it, like it is going to bed at 8. The social life is, can be much less. It's always keeping up, like your voice is always changing as you age as well. That's constantly going through shifts. You have to continue to study your own instrument and dedicate time to exercising, doing your warm-ups, and you're an athlete in a lot of ways. And then also it's continuing to find that balance of like, you do still have to live the life. You got to go out and experience so that you can share that. And so it is finding that balance, though. You got to go out and party sometimes.
Yeah. Party on, Wayne.
Party on, guard.
Camera one.
Camera two. Camera one. Camera two. She will be mine. Oh yes.
She will be mine. For the Wayne's World lovers in the audience, yes. I think I want to end it on a high note here. I think some of like the wisdom from things that you've said in the past. You've said that you want people to look at their disabilities as superpowers. I think it's a really beautiful thing. For the folks here who are struggling with, some limitation, whether it's a self-limiting belief that we all, struggle with, what would you tell them?
That can be the thing that makes you stand apart. That can be the thing that if you truly embrace it and you learn to find a way to make that just part of, like, own it and make it a part of you, and talk about it and be willing to explore it, be willing to be okay that it's different and that there's a lot of beauty in that, and surrendering. I mean, you just gotta, like, that is, exploring, every part of yourself and letting that be something that doesn't feel like a disability, that it's the thing that can actually give you that perspective that a lot of people don't have. Like I actually love working with one of my favorite things that's come from the voice is that I work with Children's Miracle Network, and I go and do these events with all of these kids who have disabilities or whatnot, and they are so young, and their outlook on life and the things that they've had to endure because of, you know, whatever their disability is, or, you know, a terminal cancer, or, you know, being you know, getting better after that, and seeing how much joy they have for life, or that is actually what makes them so amazing, is that this thing that is just awful, you see them go through something that no one should go through, and they come out the other side, and they like all of the kids I met are beaming, and they have like the most joy for life, and they have that. I think it is about also having childlike want to explore, and I think something really important for me is also it is being connected to your inner child and always wanting to approach things with this childlike wonder. And I think experiencing them and seeing that has been something that I was like, that is a beautiful thing to take away from that, is always being connected to your inner child and seeing those things that you feel like are limitations could actually be the thing that makes you special.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your talents with us, sharing
Thank
your
you, Daddy.
time, and for helping share the wisdom with others. We'd love to open it up for audience questions. We have a few minutes. Yes, we got some questions over there.
Hey, my name is Jabron. You were talking about these different pitches and how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you could teach us, I mean, not like a lesson or anything, but like when you're identifying these different feelings in your body and associating them with different pitches and feelings, like I'm really curious to know how you identify those things and how it feels and maybe the different emotions that come with that. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious to know more about that.
Yeah. I mean, something I had, thank you for your question, Jermon. It's something that I have, you know, sort of been experiencing since I was very young. And I notice it when there is something like, that's a good question, because it's hard to articulate or put into words. Because it is like this feeling. There is like when I settle into what feels like a very I explored different specifically resonances, and I would find pockets of resonance, and that was really based off of more of the feeling of it rather than the sound. There is something that happens when I raise my soft palate, or like find a different space for a note to live where it doesn't feel like anything. Like there's no pressure or anything like that. It just is like I put it in a place, and it feels like it's not even coming from me anymore. So that was definitely a lot of exploring like resonance, and you'll feel it like everything vibrates when it hits that spot that's like right on pitch, or like right in that specific like resonance spot, either in your mask or in your like raising your soft palate. And it's all about finding what feels good. A lot of, I think, you know, it's definitely, you can play around with like push and pull of like, you know, getting grungy with vocals, and it's fun to do that. But I always feel like I would say go with what, based on how, like me going by feeling, it was whatever felt easiest. That is what's going to, if it feels easy, it sounds easy. And that's, you know, I think that's something I focused on, was just like what is feeling the easiest, and it's about finding those resonance spots. I hope that answered your question.
Any other questions? Yeah, you want to step right up?
Trevor, what's up, my man?
Hey, before the performance or during the performance, you mentioned how it felt different performing for this size crowd relative to like a 7 million one. So I'm curious, just like how those two sizes feel different, and also like what is your favorite crowd size to perform for?
Good question, Trevor. Thank you, Trevor. I would say that there's something about when you're performing for millions of people, you actually feel more alone. Like you feel like there's something that feels actually quite, I don't want to say disconnected, but you can kind of go into your own world in a different way when it's such a massive crowd or you're on, it's like a screen or whatever it is. Especially with in-ears, it can everything sort of like closes in. But I would say that still, like, this is my favorite place to I like an intimate setting. I like feeling the connection. I like that we're sharing something and I can see you, even though I closed my eyes the whole time. I can still feel you. But that's sort of where I kind of like that I feel like a little nervous because it's like you're alive. And that feels exciting to me because you're like, oh, what's going to happen? So I would say that the more intimate setting is where I like, yeah.
I loved when you said you go through this process of unearthing yourself. Can you talk a bit about how did you get over that process of like going through these vulnerabilities and pushing that into art and some of the challenges you had around that and really bringing that to the forefront?
Thank you. Still working on that. Yeah, I think that there's a point where it's great to unearth and name and take accountability and recognize where you need something to shift or change. And I think at some point I just let it go too far that way, and where my inner dialogue was just criticism. And getting out of that has been, because I've been living with that critic for so long, I have had to like reach for other resources. So like right now I'm doing the artist way. And I will say something about, journaling has really been beautiful, and practicing self-love has been really necessary, and shifting that critic. Like, thank you for being here. You obviously have helped me a lot, and also not everything you say is true. And naming that, recognizing that, and shifting, like being able to hear those thoughts and release them, and have this other voice that's like, and what if it's great? No, this voice is always like, what if this happens and this happens and everything goes to shit? And then I'm like, okay, thank you for being here. I appreciate you trying to like help me out here. But listening, bringing in that voice and being really intentional with practicing. I have to practice that a lot, which has been really helpful actually. And then it's able to come onto the page a little bit more because I can recognize that and see, yes, that is something I'm feeling and it's really important to talk about. And also, there's a lot of good, and I need to recognize that too. And so it's a process. But I appreciate the question because it's currently what I practice a lot.
That's awesome. We have time for one more question. Who wants to have the last question of the night?
Maria!
Take it.
Maria's from Singapore.
Yeah. I'm a Chinese.
First week in New York.
I'm a Chinese and I worked in Singapore, and I'm currently on a solo trip around the world. And Maelyn is the first person who say hi in this event. And I'm a bit nervous before, but I love everything you shared. And I want to say congratulations. Like, you go through all the hardship, and you become such an inspiring and happy person who can inspire here in the whole space. Congratulations. This is what I want to say. And my question is, actually I'm struggle a lot of times. Like, sometimes I feel like my mind, my soul, and my behavior is not aligned. And I noticed you mentioned a lot about about your self connection. And I want to know, like, in your journey, what you want to share and enhance. Yeah, like how to achieve this kind of levels of self connection and to truly live your potential and explore the things beautiful. Yeah, that's my
Maria, thank you for saying all of that. You're so sweet. I'm gonna cry. Self-connection is the most important. And I've said it again, but I've said it rather a couple of times, but there's something about taking time to, you have to carve out that time for yourself. You have to have that time where you're like, I'm going to journal, or I'm going to sit here, I'm going to put my phone away, I'm going to explore creation, like whatever that may be. Creativity is, if it's visual, if it's, you're drawing, if you're making music, if whatever it is getting in touch with whatever is creative in you and playing. I do think getting in touch with your inner child and focusing on having that childlike wonder is so important. Again, like getting everything out on a page, like doing your journaling, and that there, I feel like a lot of my self-connection has come from sitting with me and a page, and that's not my phone. Like I used to try to like do journaling like in notes, and I can't do that anymore because like the autopilot of like taking out your phone and going through every app and like the scroll is just so like innate at this point where I was like, I can't do it on my phone anymore. I think having like a book and letting yourself be bored, letting yourself just really taking that time. And it's hard, there's so much shit to do, and it's really hard, but being intentional with like carving out a couple of hours in your day of like, what does self-connection look like? And it could be anything. It could be yoga, it could be exercise or whatever it is, but really being intentional with what that is for you, that you're connecting with to yourself. And that's something I've been really trying to implement recently. And I'm not perfect at it. But it has, anytime I do it, I mean, I feel so much lighter. I know I feel better when I do it. And I think that's self-connection is key.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Johnny.
All right, guys. You can catch Maelyn on Spotify, Instagram, YouTube. We'll have the full talk published in a week.
Uh-oh.
And the performance shortly thereafter. So make sure to subscribe to 57 NYC on YouTube for more. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Cheers.